My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be John and Santa, A Cowboy Shirt, Video 18, The Journal. So this is the novella, John and Santa, the Cowboy Shirt, but I got to read from the novella. I'm going to read passages from the journal that I wrote as I was polishing the rough draft of the novella. I've taken the passages that I'm going to read from the first few pages of the completed journal, which is called The Making of John and Santa, which can be found on my website, johnpassfield.ca, for free access. So here's number one, the first passage. My first note about the writing of a novella about Santa Claus was written on Thursday, November 25th, 2021, and I signed off on the complete rough draft on December 31st, 2021. So the novella was planned and written in a little more than a month. To look back at it, now that the novella is complete and polished, and in the hands of my publisher, it's to see the first planning note as a mixture of the embarrassingly familiar and commonplace on the one hand, and some of the elements that made their way into the novella that I wrote, and which make that novel unique. Not only, I believe, to the Christmas stories that are so familiar, but unique to me in terms of the form in which I had been writing my novels up to that point. Mixed in with the rather trite idea that Santa's old, tired, and has lost touch with the joys of the children of the world are such elements as myself, John, as a passenger in Santa's sleigh, the trip to interesting places, my concern with the agonies of the world, the mystery of the lost cowboy shirt, and a mention of Charles Dickens, on whose novella the presentation of scenes concept of this novella is based. It's always fascinating to look back at the earliest notes for a novel or a novella and see the mixture of the viable and discarded elements in my earliest thoughts on a topic. So a mixture of things at the beginning. Gradually a writer sorts them out. Okay, number two. Here's another note. My original title for this novella was John and Santa, A Rare and Exclusive Interview. So that is the title which is used in the planning notebook. A few days ago, my publisher, David Stover of Rocks Mills Press, wondered whether the cover could have some color added, as the original photo of me as a boy and the lettering were in black and white. So this was a black and white photo originally. I wrote back to him that I had felt the lack of Christmas color when I first had my son Craig make up the cover, but had let it go that I would ask Craig if color could be added to the photo. Well, Craig had the photo colorized, and I was pleased. And as we were discussing the change, I thought of taking my cue from the cover photo and changing the title. So the new title, John and Santa, the Cowboy Shirt, will be used in this journal. So the planning notebook has one title and the journal has another because they were written at different times. Okay, here's the third passage from the journal. I was about to write that this was the first time that I have cast myself as a character in a piece of fiction, but then immediately it occurred to me that it wasn't so long ago that I wrote my novel, John Passfield, Saturday Morning. So here it is, John Passfield, Saturday Morning, my wife and I in our little white sports car, in which I cast myself as the main character for the 50,000 words of that novel. However, it is the first time that I have blended my own personal experiences, in this case of a novel writer who attended a meeting of a book discussion group in order to read Christmas items and chat about them, blended reality, you might say, with fiction, which is drawn from other sources, in this case from the myth about Santa Claus. So I'd cast myself in a novel, but not in a novel which blends my reality and some fantasy. Okay, number 4. I've written 3 novels about my family. Ostrich, A Walk with Granddad. Here it is. About my mother's family in England on the eve of deciding whether or not to move to Canada. Cyril Passfield Out West. My novel about my dad's excursion to the west of Canada in the summer of 1932 during the Great Depression to work in the harvest. And as I just mentioned, my own novel set in the summer of 1967, when I was the garbage man who built the perfect load of garbage. But I believe that I can say that all of my other novels have been drawn from the world of history or the news or literature. So I always wrote about someone else till I got the idea that I could write about my family and even myself and still make a viable piece of literature out of it. Okay, number 5. At any rate, the interaction of my everyday life and the literature that I was reading has now become a literary form, the John and novella, which takes as its premise the interaction between the everyday life of myself, John Pasfield, the writer, and the mythical characters and situations that I've always found so fascinating to read about. So the first one was John and Santa. It's been published. 3 not published yet, but written. John and Cassandra, John and Dickens, and John and Lewis Carroll. So they're all written and waiting on the runway, you might say, to be published, and I have some more ideas in mind. Okay, so here's a conclusion of sorts. After my first few video presentations, it became my practice to write an original note to present as a conclusion to each of these video readings. However, in this case, I'll read a note from the John and Santa Journal as my concluding statement. So here it is. It's number 6, actually. I don't tend to see my life as presenting crises, but just let me say that I've been faced with decisions about the writing of journals twice in my writing career. The concept of the Journal of Response grew naturally out of my writing of short stories. Whoops, let me get my page flipped here. A night school writing teacher asked for a note on the historical background of a writing assignment, and I included an explanation of my intentions in writing my short stories. Then, realizing that such an assessment helped in my creative work, I kept writing notes of response to myself, first to completed chapters and later to completed novels. However, when I approached the writing process for my second novel, Jumbo, I wondered whether I'd find anything new to say about my writing project. However, a second thought was the realization that although I had profited by the journals of Virginia Woolf and the notebooks of Henry James, no one, in my knowledge, had produced a book-length response to each of a whole series of novels. So realizing that I had a chance to do something unique, I decided to write a jumbo journal of response. And I kept on writing journals of response. The second time that I wondered about future journal writing has been over the last few novels, when I began to realize that the time for creative writing is short. I'm currently 76 and a half years old. I say in this written note, I say here, sitting here reading, I'm a year older than that, and that a month of writing time is taken up by each journal. Accordingly, I've wondered whether I should make a novel writing sprint to the end without any journals. So after my 25th journal or my 30th journal, I have at present 29 journals, and this will be the 30th, where the 31st creative work, John and Cassandra, finished but not published, waiting for a journal if I write one before I can get on with the creative writing of a new novel or novella. So I just wondered, should I keep using a month for each book, at least 2 months a year, sometimes 3 months a year, for writing journals, or should I just drop that practice? As of today, I've decided that I will write a journal for this novella, John and Santa, and probably will write a journal for each of my remaining novels and novellas. The compromise has been to write much shorter journals. I was surprised to realize that my Terry Fox journal is almost 100,000 words. That's 100,000 words, about a 50,000 word novel, by the way. I will never write a journal of that length again. In any case, I will get as many creative works completed as I can before old age, whether lack of ability or lack of interest puts an end to my writing career. So my original idea was to write everything that a writer thinks about as he or she is polishing a novel. And in that case, it gave me 100,000 words. So thank you for watching this video. Just a reminder that the novella is John and Santa, the Cowboy Shirt. It's available on Amazon. My publisher's website is roxmillspress.com for more information, and the journal is available for free at my website, johnpassville.ca. So thank you again for watching.